Now to the UK, where illegal immigration has become the #1 issue in the country. And there has been some incredible reporting by the likes of GB News and some of the newspapers about human trafficking gangs and illegal migrant hotels costing unfathomable sums of money. But one media outlet is copping a little bit of flack, and that is the BBC.
Anti-migrant protests spread last night to Diss in Norfolk, where residents turned on the BBC.
Hi BBC! I just want to ask, you know how you all covered up the sexual assaults and rapes perpetrated by the Muslims in Rochdale? Is that what you're planning to do in Diss as well? Are you going to let young girls suffer because of your incompetence, because you're told not to report on the truth? Is that what's going to happen?
They're walking.
That's good, leave. Don't answer what the public have to say, just leave.
Well, Mia, quite rightfully, the groups of people protesting are very frustrated at this fundamental failing by an institution which would traditionally report on these sorts of crimes and gangs. And what we now know in the UK, you've got politicians such as Keir Starmer himself is conceding this is a major issue, which to me is an incredible shift from where we were even a year or two ago on this issue. But the BBC, it failed in its duty, and much to the same way that we might criticise the ABC for ideological groupthink. What do you make of the fact that the public is now putting pressure back onto this public institution and asking why it failed to report on these issues?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right there that the BBC has failed, and this is just a classic example of these elitist institutions like the BBC, where if a certain narrative doesn't suit their worldview, then they don't shed any light on it. I mean, it is just continuous, and I think it's important to note that the BBC, like the ABC, it was created in a time where there wasn't much diversity in the media market, but now Australians and those in the UK, there are so many different media outlets that they're able to get their news sources from that they can see straight through these structural biases and they can get their information elsewhere. And I think that's why they're turning off.
Yeah, it's such a good point, Mia. And also, I mean, Darren, that's why some of these organisations like to control the flow of information. They haven't figured out how to adapt. The BBC, as you're well aware, with all your reporting in the media sector, is a subscription-based model, but it's a mandatory one. Yep. And if you've got a television, then they go up to Brits and they demand that they pay money even if there's no intent to even use the service. Yep. Different model to what we've got in Australia here with the ABC. But I think it's facing this fundamental crisis where if the audience and the general public overwhelmingly doesn't want a service anymore and it loses that faith and that trust, it becomes an existential problem.
Yep. I think there's big parallels here with the ABC in the way that it covers illegal immigration. At times, the BBC has, for me, looked like it's more concerned about the tone of its coverage and not fitting progressive narratives. And frankly, has not just been cautious in its coverage of illegal immigration and the scale and the cost and the impact on taxpayers of that, but actually complicit in it in terms of downplaying the consequences and human trafficking and related issues and things like that. Look, good on the Daily Telegraph in the UK and GB News. They've actually held government, other institutions to account over this issue. And those scenes that you've played there are incredible, with the public turning on.
GB News has one reporter that's gone and found all of the smuggling gangs at a time that the police said it was difficult to smash the gangs. And he said, OK, well, watch me.
Yeah, good on them.
Yeah, incredible stuff.